Hello, I'm David Hunt and welcome to The Art Hunter. You know that creative mind of an artist? It blows me away. Well, my guest today has got that creative mind. He doesn't think it. I like to tease him, but we'll get to that a bit later on. He is of European Aboriginal descent, studied art and design at Prahran Institute, which I found out only earlier today that you didn't finish there, but we'll talk about that later. Right. We'll talk about that later. And then did design at Swinburne Uni. Again, he didn't finish that, but hey, you're like, wait until you hear what he's achieved. He was an early adapter to street art in the 90s, which good on him for that, and wait until you see his art. If you don't know his art, you're gonna love it. Believes art can be created from almost any mundane object, like polishing a turd, which he has quoted on odd occasions. First venture into the art world came when a friend gave him a plastic doll's head and challenged him to make art out of it. Well, the rest is history, because those doll's heads are being sold to people, collectors around the world. Still, one of my favourite pieces of art that he's created is over my shoulder, the skulls. They're spectacular, I love them. And he had a hugely successful exhibition of 45 downstairs. He did let me in. I wasn't allowed to at the beginning, but one day I was allowed into that exhibition. He did extremely well with it. And this unorthodox manner of getting Renaissance engraving, and you'll see it around us. And then he puts sections of computer motherboard. I don't even really know what's going on here. And he scans it over the top. I don't even know if I've got that right or not, but we'll sort that out. We'll sort that out. He's just been shortlisted for an exhibition of print at the Geelong Gallery, and I hope he wins, so all the best there as well. My guest today, the one and only, the naughty little boy in the corner all the time, Chris Orr. Hello.
Hi David, thanks for that. I don't believe a word of it.
You don't believe a word of it? Hey, well, it is your life.
Yes, it is.
All right,
fortunately or unfortunately, it is.
It is. So what a wonderful way to get involved in the arts, like sort of almost accidentally, wasn't it?
Look, I had the opportunity when I was in high school to go to the College of the Arts. I was in Form 5. My art teacher and my graphic design teacher pushed for it really hard. And I went for interviews to go and start my first year. So the equivalent of an HSC back then, or an orientation year at the College of the Arts. Got it all dotted, and my dad put his foot down and said, "No, son, there's no money in art." So by the end of that year, I'd actually was gently manoeuvred out of home, let's say, and off I went into the world. And I actually had already instead enrolled into Swinburne. I got into Swinburne, so I did Swinburne before I did Prahran.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
So that I was doing what I would call a career. I call it creative prostitution, which is graphic design to a degree. I mean, you're prostituting your artistic skills, and you're homogenising it and compromising it a lot of the time. So I didn't finish that course. I did first year architecture at RMIT for 7 months.
Yeah.
So this is back in the day when universities and colleges were free. So the narcissist in me was just wanting to get in rather than actually apply myself, which is terrible, because that meant I was somebody else. I was forfeiting somebody else's position. Exactly right, which is terrible. I can see that now. But I didn't have the staying power anyway. So.
Why didn't you, Chris? Because you were too, you were enjoying life. Life was good, and you were out and about on the scene a lot. But was it have you got a thought pattern?
Definitely. I mean, I was I was moved from pillar to post as a kid. I ran away from home a lot. I lived with different members of my family. I was never very settled anyway, so I had a really bad level of concentration. I think they call that now attention deficit disorder. We've all got a degree of that, and it depends, whether it's derivative of something that happened to you or just the way you're built. So I had difficulty in sticking to things I didn't want to do. I had no interest in it, e.g. getting into architecture and being shit at maths. So can I say?
You can say that.
Fecal matter at maths.
But architecture as well is, like you can see it in your work. Like there's a bit
construction.
of that. Yeah. And
I am a closet architect. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the love of architecture and the
totally.
building you live in, which I know the building you live in, is such an unusual, different building.
Yes.
But let's talk about like that doll's head that you were given. And the challenge to create something, because this is a wonderful story, and especially considering that really sent you on the road.
Well, I've always seen the opportunity or possibility of anything. For instance, in my office studio at home, I look out to a red brick wall. I find that inspiring for some reason, comforting, inspiring. I see opportunity in every mundane object. I really do. Everything has a possibility. So a lot of my friends who were artists thought it was time for me to put my money where my mouth is, instead of criticising everyone else as being a critic, which I am of art, and gave me this plastic doll and said, you've got a month to see what you can come up with, sort of thing. I love the dare, so I did, and it's actually behind us here.
Yeah.
And what it is a close, like a 1700 DPI scan of a flesh-coloured doll that I've just colour rinsed and I built a box around my scanner, and with black box around the scanner, and all gaffer tape together, and some extra lights around to get that luminosity, and then just rinse with colour in the computer and stuff. And they were quite large format pieces of art, because as a graphic designer I understand production, and I like art to be overscale, big scale, as big as possible, and then reduce it back.
Right.
So the first incarnation of that was actually it was one of the images, because I was working as a graphic designer, where I first got my work out there, was actually branding the 2000 Queer Film Festival, and there's an image of a doll's head on that, and that did create a lot of that interest. So I had an exhibition up in Sydney in an architect's foyer. Yeah. They bought my work and I flew up there, and that set it up. Now I was still working I'd already established myself as a graphic design, as a solo operator. So that was the art stuff was almost like a necessary exhaust pipe for me to go out and do what I wanted to do, while still, so I could cope with dealing with clients and focusing on the commercial stuff.
But I'm going to stick with the doll because the doll's head, because it is so, your imagination there is amazing. And it would have been back in the day, Chris, where the computers don't do what they do now, and and you were talking about the gaffer.
These were slides.
And you're like, it is just such a beautiful, unique image, and it's fascinating. You don't know really what's going on with it.
Well, I always liked, I'm always happy to explain the recipe, but I also like people to be second guessing. I guess a lot of artists would be doing that. How do they do that? And that's what I like to see in other artists. How do they do that? Yeah. How did they get to that level?
So you're like that when you look at art?
Totally. Yeah. I'm always, if I work it out too quickly, I'm like, no, that's next. But I love it when I don't understand, or infuriated when I don't understand how somebody does something. I've got an artist I follow at the moment, I should remember his name, and I'm getting so irate. This is an Instagram follower, and I look at his work, and I look at it, and I still cannot work out how he does it, but I love that.
Yeah.
And it should be a mystery to it.
But what about the old masters? Do you look at their art?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, look, one of the most amazing things I saw was when I was in Italy a few years ago, turned around a corner, went into a small basilica in Rome, and up on the ceiling were the actual chalk drawings or the beginnings of a painting that never got finished in the 1600s.
Whoa.
And it was mind-blowing. It was actually with Barry Kosky at the time.
Right.
But he doesn't do Catholic churches, so he wouldn't come in. I was like, but you're missing out. It's amazing. You can see the actual draftsmanship all gridded up on a dome and all the line work, with almost look like charcoal.
Yeah. Well, and what they would have to do, the scaffolding, you can imagine how primitive it would have been.
We all remember the Columbine's ad.
Yeah. And like laying on their back, like with paint falling on them.
That's right, for months.
Yeah.
For months. Yeah.
But what they achieved is extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, that was their television of the time. You're looking up at the ceilings of churches, and that was, imagine this poor peasant crawling up to Rome, and it'd be like a UFO landed. You'd go and see this opulent pile of plunder and richness and communication coming through the ceilings. I mean, I'd be prostrate on the floor too, terrified,
Yeah, and you're like, I'm doomed for life.
Exactly right.
And it was highly successful for you, wasn't it? The doll's heads.
It was.
And people in Berlin and around Australia and other countries.
And I stupidly only did a limited series of them, and as a ritualistic thing online, I showed the destruction of the files. I mean, what a WANKER. I mean, it was like, well, I can do that again. I couldn't actually repeat the recipe if I tried.
Wow.
So that's kind of whoever's got them. They're very lucky.
Because I was actually going to say to you, why hasn't it reared its head again? That's why.
I couldn't, because like when you create anything, you get into a rhythm. And that rhythm, it just builds and builds, and then it's this nice little plateau of, the hamster wheel going very fast, and you're doing that stuff. And then half the time you don't know, you're in a zone that you don't go back and rewind and work out how you did it. You're just in there, you know.
Yeah.
Like when musicians are playing a set or something that's off the notation or whatever. It's the same thing. You just off you go.
Yeah.
So.
So, where does inspiration come from? As you said, you could look at any mundane object and, create something from it. I'm going to...
question.
Well, go on.
No, I don't have the answer. You keep going. I don't have the answer just off the top of my head, I've got to admit.
I'm going to help you because I'm pointing back to the skulls. And what you've done there is extraordinary. So you've got the skulls, but then you've got all this lovely, like Venetian, or is it?
What it is it's antique engraving work that I've applied over the top, almost is like the same way you would do a stencil. So what's only there is the line work, the pure line work, and I've removed all what was been the white of the paper behind. So it's like draping a piece of lace over the top of the skull, but it's just a illustration, and I just manipulate that. That is done on the computer. It's just, but not as not as Photoshoppy as you think. I try and remove that. I don't like to work in that whole star shiny, glossy sort of mentality. It's very basic what I'm doing there, but it's very fiddly at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's the same with getting the light. The colour is not brushing the pink on, it's actually made by the light that I'm using on it to get that level of saturation. So
hold on, explain that again. I don't,
So around the box I will have coloured acrylic gels.
Yeah.
That help give me the beginning of the colour. And what I do with the computer is then over-saturate it. So bump up the colour I'm creating by light. I mean, all colour is made by light, as you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting there with a brush on the computer colouring it in. It's almost like my hands are tied behind my back a bit.
Whoa.
Because I'm not very good at drawing on the computer. I'm a good hand-to-eye drawer on paper, but I find using a mouse, there's this synapses disconnect between the brain and the mouse or the pen tool.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite connect for me.
So are you quite unique in what you do in that, or are other people doing it?
I wouldn't know. I very much keep the blinkers on.
Okay.
So and the only thing that's opened up of course, Instagram has made a huge difference for me to see what's out there. And I don't see stuff. I see stuff. Look, we all we all look for things that are related to each other with artists. Oh, that looks like such and such with such as work, and that's how the mind works when you're looking at visuals anyway. Of course, there'd be somebody out there possibly going through the same processes, but I'd be worried if they were. So it's a bit nutty.
But
it's odd.
Is anyone stealing some of the...
I wouldn't care if they did. Right. I used to keep the recipe quiet of what I was doing, and I thought, oh, who cares? Like I've had plagiarism before in the design world.
Yep.
And rather than be irate over, I always took it as a compliment. As a graphic designer, of course, it's all about litigation in that area, but I'm like, no, look, just stop what you're doing. I've seen it. It's a compliment, but you can't use it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
This I wouldn't care. I mean, if someone wanted to have a go, good luck to them. Yeah. If they can replicate that recipe, good luck to them.
Yeah. You haven't destroyed that?
No. No. They're all nicely archived away. My partner's very good at making sure things don't get thrown away anymore.
So, will you resurrect that? The skulls?
Well, this was very recent. So this was the first show that was really successful, and
well, a few years ago, wasn't it?
It was. I was surprised it was. It was 2015.
Yeah,
16,
COVID brain. We've got COVID brain. We don't know what year it is.
Looking at that green one there, it does look like COVID brain, doesn't it? It could have been more timely for now than then. I would go back. Of course, the naysayers go, oh, you've cut yourself off short. You're doing skulls. You cut yourself off short. You're doing religion.
Yeah.
Well, would I revisit that? Yeah. Yes, I would. I was looking at, even when I pulled them out last night to send to you, I was looking going, I should revisit that process again. Just because once you've done something, you get bored with it straight away. It's the most enjoyable part about doing art. It's not the final product. It's when you hit that note when you're doing it. It's the enjoyment of the process, and it's almost the failure a lot of the time to get to that process. That's the only good bit about it. I actually don't like looking at my work when it's finished, but I like remembering that moment when something clicked over when I'm doing it.
Oh, that disappoints me that you don't like looking at it, because you should be so proud of what you're doing.
Well, thanks. You don't. It's like I guess a lot of creative people, they don't like looking at the way actors don't like looking at themselves on screen. Although musicians, I assume, would like hearing themselves play again. But they also, I come from a family of musicians. They don't like listening to themselves play actually either. So in recording, so
right.
it's you see the faults and that's all you see.
Right. Okay.
Or you see, what is it called? Imposter Syndrome.
Right.
I get a bit of that.
All right, so over your shoulder, we're looking at something that's quite unique, and you had a very successful exhibition at 45 downstairs. Where did you get these Renaissance and Victorian, plates that...
Well, this comes down to laziness, actually, because I bought a print probably 20 years ago off a guy who was actually selling what looked like plunder from somebody's wealthy estate in a small shop front in St Kilda, where the Spud Bar is, and down near Blessington Street. I think the Spud Bar's gone now, but down that way. And he had all these amazing 18th century Italian prints and furniture and stuff, extraordinarily cheap, and I could afford a couple of prints, and I bought one that's been sitting on my wall for years, and I kept looking at it, and always been really interested in the fine engraving work on it, and I thought, I know, I'm going to put that through the scanner and see what I can do with it. And it was actually it wasn't actually, it was the other way. No, it was that. It did start with that. And then I thought, well, now I can, because the same way I was doing the skulls, when I removed the background from that line work, what can I marry that with to juxtapose it? So I had an old laptop. I pulled it apart. I already had the idea of the motherboard in my head. I thought I pulled it apart, smashed it up with a mallet. My fingers were, because they're really hard to pull out, actually. They're really hard. You need special tech tools. That's why you don't play with your own phones and stuff. They're all designed so someone else has to do it. Anyway, I cut it up to pieces, cleaned the crap out of it, put it through the scanner at something like 3,000 DPI. So the motherboard details are so fine, the naked eyes, you don't see all the line work, but when you scan it, boys, there are cartographic trip on those motherboards. So,
but hold on, I'm going to stop you right there. How the bloody hell did you come up with thinking of the motherboard?
Because I do know what they look like, and I've always been interested in, again, and maybe the architect, the line, the detailed line work on a motherboard. You know, those line work almost look tribal on them. You know, they say they're made by machines, they're not made by hand. So there's an artistry to the way they all lay it out and
twist
stuff.
and turn.
That's right. Yeah.
And almost tattoo style.
That's right.
Or could be, and that's the way you
That's exactly how I interpreted it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what I saw.
I guessed what you were doing there.
Exactly. That was a little bit by default. So I cut up. I was originally cutting them up by hand with a knife and pliers and stuff. And Dum Dum here has been using a computer for years. So hold on a minute. You do know you can cut that up on the computer manually rather than. So if you look at that one there, what you can see, I'm mirroring a lot of those. I'm making wallpaper essentially out of these things. But what you can see there, is probably 1 square inch of a motherboard.
Right.
So that's how much detail you can get out of that. Now I really am giving my stuff away.
Yeah.
But it is painstaking to remove the colour from the motherboard. It's about colour bleaching and rinsing, so you're just left with the trace lines and then refilling it with colour.
And just saying that then, have you noticed that anyone else has done that?
No. I've seen, I think about 20 years ago, I noticed people were making jewellery out of motherboards, and maybe that was in my headspace.
Okay. But this is taking it to a whole different...
People will draw their own interpretations of motherboard on a computer, but they don't have the same organics. So there's a fractured quality about some of these, and you can see the little bits of solder marks and all that. That's what I'm interested in. I don't want that absolute purity, otherwise it's dead.
Yeah.
But this stuff is just a little bit wobbly, and if you went up close to it and you saw it on a wall, you'd actually think it was painted or it was a lino print.
Yeah.
Because it's wobbly at the end of the day with the tiny little solder marks and all that. Yeah.
So you're getting more images. The one directly behind you is like a bust, and I love that.
It's Princess Alexandra, who was married to Edward VII.
Right.
Alexandria. I should know her name.
I have no idea.
Yeah, anyway, yes.
And it's virtually like you've done it like a mask on her face. Yeah. Which is spectacular. And the fact that it is a bust, and it's quite different to like the Madonna and Child that you use a lot as well.
Again, that's one just because it was one of the prints. I would love to think there was an intellectual prowess to the process why I used, but she was a good fit.
Yeah.
You know, it's being in the zone again of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
The 90% of what I make never sees the light of day. It doesn't get to that level.
Right, okay. But that's the same with a lot of artists,
of course.
I reckon. Yeah. So, like finding that, that bust, how did you find that? Or were you just going through images?
No, there was a shop. I know what the integrity of the line work I'm looking for these, but that needs to be a steel engraving generally because the line work is much finer. Wood blocks don't work. It's about the synergy between the quality of the line work on the engraving marrying with the fine line work of the motherboard.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and it has to be a particular line weight.
Yeah.
And it's like point something of a point of a mill sort of thing to work together. Otherwise, it just looks clumsy.
Yeah.
So there has to be a certain synergy where they both. You don't know what's stronger, the drawing or the motherboard. It has to sit and marry perfectly together.
Yeah.
It's a synergy thing.
Okay.
So this one I bought in a shop next to Leonard Joel's. There's a little print shop, art and framing shop, and they had a box of stuff there, so I found her in there.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But then instead of using the motherboard, you've gone very commercial, almost like Andy Warhol, using a Coke can that you cut up and open up and then layer it. Well, you'll explain it.
That's right.
Which I think is taking it to another dimension again.
So it was interesting. I'll go back. I will talk about a critique somebody gave me about that who had got it all wrong. So the Coke cans and the lemonade cans, I cut them up and I flatten them and then I buckle them. So you're getting this amazing refraction of light. I'm almost using cans as a point of impressionism, but that's the light. The light bounces off the can. So that's, again, it's not done by the computer. It's actually the light off the cans, and I'm rearranging it so it hits the right part of the body. So the can moves around under the drawing to get that right refraction where it sits on the right part of the body, and it just changes the volume of the drawing. So again, yes, I'm beholden to the drawing and the original artist who's created that engraving, but equally I want to bring it to another dimension. So my work that I'm bringing to is equally as strong. Yeah.
So tell us about the comment that somebody made.
So I had a lady come in, and this is the opening night of the show at 45 downstairs, and she came up to me and she said, it was the point, well, the colours are very gauche, but it's all done by computers though, so I understand that. And I'm like, I'm really busy. No, I can't let her walk away from this. So I'm almost like, come on, we're going to walk around, we're going to take a turn around the gallery, and I'm going to point to exactly how it is. And she was just flabbergasted, and she said, why isn't that in the explanation? It says a piece of paper over there that you could have read. But I didn't want her to walk away as obviously as a lecturer at RMIT and a critique, thinking that she
had worked
she'd worked it out. But then also you can't tell another person, you can't force somebody to like or dislike your work. So I don't care about people not liking it, but if they get the formula wrong, then I'm really annoyed. So.
Yeah, well, and rightly so.
Yeah, I'm not just pressing a computer. I mean, everyone's an artist because they've got a computer potentially, you know, I understand that, but I'm trying to manipulate it in a very different way, not the obvious way, stay away from the toolboxes too much on the computer screen.
So, like that, the success of that exhibition was, by the time I'd got to see it, a lot of it had been sold. I
was actually bowled over. I was completely taken back by it.
Yeah,
I was so happy.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what does it do for you as an artist to have such a successful exhibition at a prestigious gallery?
What was I using the word before? Imposter syndrome, which you always suffer. I didn't feel like an imposter anymore.
Okay.
And what I did find interesting was the look in with other artists that came from it who were wanting to talk to me, and that we were a prickly lot. I still wasn't willing to call myself an artist at this stage, but I decided, well, that's it. I am. I have to be if I want to play when I enter that race, or whatever we want to call it. But the it got rid of that imposter syndrome that I had, because it didn't fit a formula, and it doesn't fit into any style of art that exists. Not saying that it's genius. What I'm saying is it looks very commercial and it almost looks like cartoons. It doesn't fit a formula. So when a critic comes in and asks me questions, you can see them struggling, and I understand that struggle too because I have the same thing. But to put it this way, the sales and who bought my art made me feel a lot more comfortable about what I was doing. Yeah.
And what has it done to you after? Like how has it set? Because you really haven't been able to have an exhibition. You were supposed to have had one, and that's fallen over. And we'll get to the piece that you've got down at Geelong Gallery a bit later. But what does it do for you? Does it spur you on as an artist?
It does, and it also gives me that space to have that level of that space to have that self-doubts that you go through when you're creating something. So there's a lot of so it's all ebb and flow with, and I think many artists would go through this, a lot of self-doubt. I doubt I can't do this is not going to work, but what I do know now is that I'm going to get there. So I always know I'm going to get there. And so it gets so with the self-doubt is actually, I know that's really important now to have that. So knowing that I can get there and it's recognised as getting there keeps me going with it. So the confidence is pretty good at the moment.
Brilliant.
Until tomorrow when I look at it and go, God, you're a failure.
What are you doing?
What are you idiot, you fraud. You're joking.
So have you got your next exhibition sitting there. You would have, wouldn't you?
I've got a lot of new stuff going on at the moment that I actually am right on the good side of at the moment that I'm really excited about.
Excellent.
So I'm really excited. It's all black and white as well.
Oh, considering all the colour you've been using.
Yeah. I'm trying to be very disciplined to just work in pure, I don't mean grayscales, just black and white. Black and white, nothing else.
Well, let's talk about Geelong Gallery. When this goes to air, the exhibition might have finished. That you're part. Well, a surprise, isn't it?
The prize has already been announced.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. I came 18th runner-up. No, there's only one winner and an exceptional winner as well. It's mind-blowing. And I wish I could remember her name.
But how lovely that you were shortlisted to be part. And it's hanging in a Geelong Gallery. Your
so
piece.
Weird, this whole thing. It's like, I don't know where the metaphor would be Emperor's New Clothes in reverse, where we've got all these bits of artwork hanging in a gallery that no one can see. It's just, it's almost art in itself.
I know. Well,
like
what about the NGV?
I know.
The NGV, like this amazing French Impressionism.
There's just something so indulgent about having this artwork sitting in empty galleries. So I don't know. It's not whether it's right or wrong. It's just how it is. But it is something haunting and particular about it that I find really interesting. And I'm very frustrated I can't go and see my work in this amazing space because it's a fantastic space, Geelong Gallery. But I was rapt. I thought I hadn't got in. That's a long story because a friend of mine who was in it, who had helped photograph the work, they needed an extra photograph of his work for publicity, so he was notified early. So I just assumed I hadn't got in.
Right.
And I'm like, I have to go and photograph his work, and I haven't got in. and we're all we were all told, confirmed on a couple of days later. So it was almost worth finding out I hadn't got in.
Yep.
To get in again. It's like losing something and finding it again. It's almost more euphoric to find it again, having lost it. So I was so rapt. It was so good to be up among sitting amongst such prestigious artwork. So it was thrilling.
And is that the first time that you've been?
I've been very lucky. I've never entered art prizes until the second show, and I've been lucky to get into each one I've entered. And that's been really thrilling in itself. So,
well, to me, it's pretty obvious that you
don't know what people are looking for at the other end. The arts mafia are a strange crew.
well, they are. But the fact is, I think you're proving them wrong in your exhibitions that you've been doing and what you've achieved in your career. I
really am a very large stater to the gate. A man in my mid-50s. And I've only been taking it seriously for the last 4 or 5 years.
Really?
Yeah. This is all new to me.
Whoa.
The rest, the dolls were done in 2000. That's how old they are. They're the one behind. So I hadn't done anything until 2015, 16.
Okay.
Since then, the rest of it was just being graphic designer.
Right. Okay.
So getting a look in and not being in a stable of other artists. I have been approached by galleries. At this stage, I want to be in control. Maybe because I worked in the commercial world so long, I just need to be in control of it myself. I find it a bit challenging, some of the way the gallery systems went, and by putting this on air, I'm not going to get a look in anyway.
You're going to lose it now.
I know.
But do you know what? I think it's a different era, Chris.
I think it is, and COVID is going to create a whole different...
But galleries were struggling a bit anyway, and they were a bit old school and all that.
I love galleries, but
that good save. That's
I absolutely do. I mean,
but putting on your own exhibition in a way, and we've had people on this show that have done their own exhibitions. And you can put it on in a warehouse, an abandoned shop.
It also cuts the price in half.
Exactly.
And makes it accessible, and that's always one of my big things. Is when I could never afford to buy the art I wanted, I always felt frustrated from that, and I didn't understand. Well, it's because the galleries, and rightfully so, they need to make the money. 30, 40, some 50%.
Well.
Yeah,
but they are paying the rent.
I know, and they're promoting,
you,
and then also they have a stable of maybe 5 to 20 artists under their roof as well. And that's a lot of work for that artist to be relying on that gallery for their income.
Would you do an exhibition, as I said, like in a warehouse or a shop? Would you do something like that by yourself?
Oh, totally.
Yeah?
I've already been... Look, I did look at St Kilda. I was hoping that some of these initiatives in some councils would... I presented this to St Kilda Council about this way before COVID, when the Fitzroy Street was dying in the proverbial, with so many empty shop fronts. Can we not have a week of arts pop up right down the street? We have vendors and all that sort of thing. I mean, you know what it's like when you know what the councils are like. It was like,
but they did do that though.
They have done something recently, because we know, as you know, we've got some mutual friends who've got art in shop fronts.
Yep.
But it wasn't timely.
Well, and
me.
I helped artists out a bit as well, didn't
That's
I?
right. Well, of course, the one in Clarendon Street was brilliant.
Yeah.
Apparently, we nearly caused a few car accidents.
Yeah, with people stopping, thinking, "Wow, what's this art?"
Yeah.
And I also gave over my social media to you for a few days.
You were the best doing that. I mean, having that opportunity just to ship things into a shop, because I think art should be accessible to the street. Shouldn't be hidden behind a closed door with Polly Prim whistle behind the counter buzzing you in. It shouldn't be intimidating.
Yep. So where do you see yourself, Chris? Like you've got an exhibition, this black and white. Can't wait to see it.
We had it cancelled, and now it's been postponed. So
where was it going to be?
It was 45 again.
Oh, again, great. Well, they would want you back, wouldn't they?
And it was with another fellow artist, Gavin Browd.
Oh, right, which you did the last one.
That's right.
With
Yeah, we seem to work really well together with our shows. It's a nice energy, really nice energy. But that got postponed. I don't think it's happening till... It's been moved around so many times. I think it's May next year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like.
So meanwhile,
yeah. But what's next? Like where can you see yourself going? What would you like to do, or aren't you thinking that far ahead?
I do think I would actually like to have. I would love to have my own space somewhere that had art and artists in it and stuff as a shop front in control of that space. And
well, why don't you do it?
Well, I just might have to do a bit more busking, I think, beforehand. I shouldn't complain. My work is selling. And you've got an interesting situation happening. You and your partner have a property down along the Great Ocean Road. That's right.
And you spend a lot of time down there, but you also rent it out.
That's right.
And you have art on the walls with a catalogue.
That's right. And other artists' art with the catalogue there, and we rotate that. Built that 2015. Irony is that was the same year of the show, and the house burnt down the 2015 bushfires and lost out on Christmas Day, and with a lot of art in there and not properly insured. And then I thought, because I was sitting at night, I thought I've had this great exhibition. Life's good, I'm really feeling it, my karma points must be good, and then bang, the house burns down and the art gets lost, and I'm back to the self-deprecation, you miserable idiot, you weren't meant to be doing that, all the self-crucifying nonsense that goes through your brain. I was so furious and angry about the whole thing. I had that place rebuilt within a year. I don't know how I did it. I lost my voice, did all that. I was just so frustrated about, no, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that, put the career back on path and all that sort of thing, which I did. But it took its toll. I'm actually only 33. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was guessing that. But so what you did, like when you open your house up for rent, what do you do? With the art.
Oh, it's just on the wall, and there's I was going to say in the program. The house doesn't have a program, but in the guest book, there's a list of all the artists and stuff and what's in there, and if they want to buy anything. And stuff
sells.
That's right. Yeah, we had a couple. And most people, it's essentially the house is. The clientele of the housewives of Armidale, if that's a real thing that exists. I love them. They're all regulars. I love you. But and some of the art isn't to their taste, but that's fine. I mean, it's about a nice, really good place. It's nice to have a home that's curated rather than seascapes, because that always does my head. And when you go to the beach, people got seascapes in their house,
or kids
but it's out the
on
window.
The beach.
It's out the window. Why do you have to have it on your wall?
I agree.
So I juxtapose what's in the house, so it's very different to what a seaside house is expected. It's not dark, but it's just a little bit gritty and edgy, and with rotating art, and
Yeah. Would you maybe open the house for a week long and use that as an exhibition space?
Damn good idea. I never
There
thought
you
of
go.
David.
Hey, we'll go
I'm
halves in the
pimping your money
commission.
now. That's a damn good idea. I can just see the people for the down the surf coast. Oh, I don't know what that is. Oh, do they call that art, Leslie? I don't know. What's that?
I think you would draw people from Melbourne to come down and
It's
see
a
it.
good idea, actually. There's a couple of hidden artists up in a place called Separation Creek who are tail end of the Angry Penguin period, who've got Fred Williams old presses and stuff like that. So something to think of, actually. It's a good point.
But that's the wonderful thing about art these days. And as you said, you can get any object and turn it, shine a turd, as you
polish
quoted.
a turd. Yeah.
So
You see me dance. Yeah.
So go for it.
Yeah.
Think outside the square.
That's right. Well, that's the mantra. Really, is always to think outside the square, and we've all become a bit insular in the last year and a half, I guess.
But you're not, though. With your art, you're totally thinking outside the square.
Yeah.
With every move you've made as an artist.
Oh, thanks. It's a nice thing to say.
Well, you know
whether
right.
it's successful or not. But you're right. Thank you. I do try and think. It's about challenging yourself and possibilities.
Yep.
And during lockdown, I was on my property, and I thought, I need a new flight of outside staircase. I actually need a flight of stairs built. And I thought, you can't build stairs, don't be an idiot. And I thought, hold on a minute, apply that rule, the same rule you apply to art as building. I built that flight of stairs, all fingers intact.
Out of mother board? No,
not out of old icy
joking.
pole sticks and egg cartons. I had my busy box out and my safety
and a little
scissors.
bit of the Lego thrown in for good measure.
And a bit of earwax, yeah.
Chris, a pleasure speaking to you, and you know that I love your art and I'll support it as much as I can because
thank you. You've been a
fantastic.
blessing. I really can't thank you enough. We don't have enough art on our screens in Australia. We just still have this. I don't know what you call it. This chip on our shoulder about it, and I find it really sad. And I'm really hoping, post-COVID, that we really do see a lot of artists thrive because of this lockdown. But I'm fearful that we lost a few, especially in the other fields and stuff. But we won't know until we're out the other side what the product of COVID has been for artists.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
I'm David Hunt. You've been watching The Art Hunter. We'll see you again real soon.